This episode is sponsored by Anchor.fm. If you're looking to start a podcast, look no further. What makes Anchor so easy to use, it's an all-in-one HubSpot. So you can upload all of your recordings for your podcast, edit them, find sponsors that work with you and that align with your podcast, get paid, and release your podcast into the wild on platforms like Apple Music or Spotify. So if you're ready to begin, just like I did, download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor.fm. Guys, I just want to take a moment to tell you how excited I am to be a partner with BetterHelp and offer you 10% off your first month. You know we discuss a lot of mental health topics on the podcast, and I am a big fan of you getting the help you need. Well, BetterHelp is a professional counseling service done securely online. They assess your needs, and then within 24 hours, they match you with a professional so you can get started as quickly as possible. We all know the importance of working with professionals and taking care of ourselves, so I love what BetterHelp is doing. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, and you can log in at any time to send a message to your counselor. It's also more affordable than traditional therapy, and they have financial aid available. I want to offer you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. Go to trybetterhelp.com/table. That's trybetterhelp.com/table. Do not attempt to believe that you are receiving love from someone who doesn't know how to love themselves the same way you'd never trust if a naked man came up to you on the street and offered you a shirt. Welcome to the Table for 9 podcast, where between the Enneagram, life, love, work, and mental health, no topic is off the table. I'm your host, Jackie, an Enneagram coach who's determined to create a safe space for you to own your story and live your most sustainable life. You belong at this table. Thanks for tuning in. Hello, my people. Welcome to the Table for 9 podcast. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you haven't been here before, just welcome. I'm so happy to be able to talk to you guys again. It's been a while and we're going to talk about it. So, hey, listen, if you are new here, no pressure, but if you've been here before, it would help me so much and be such an honor if you could go on iTunes, rate, I just slapped my thigh. If you could rate, subscribe, leave a review, 5 stars always. No, seriously, leave an honest review. And I would really much appreciate that. It does something in a weird algorithm that I don't understand. Boosts views, whatever. Views, listens. Listen, it's 3 a.m. I woke up out of my slumber and I was like, I need to record a podcast. It's been a while and we're going to talk about it. A lot of you know this, but I batch my podcasts, and not only has it been a while since I've recorded, but since I've even posted the last podcast. And a lot has happened in that time. And so I'm going to keep this one really short. It's going to be more like a little bonus thing. But you know, it's funny. I had a friend in high school. I was thinking about this when I was doing my notes. Whenever I would like walk into a party, or like it was like a whole group of us, but there's this one dude and he would be like, okay, she back. And that's literally how I feel right now. So I also want to take this time to talk about the ultimate bad bitch move, which is self-respect. So that's how I feel right now. So the podcast has been paused for a little bit. I've had a lot of other things going on, a lot of really good things, a lot of some not so great things, but things that always work out in my favor, because I think I'm one of those firm believers that even the bad things in my life are conspiring in my favor. So, and I had mentioned this before, but I batch my podcasts. And so even when the podcast comes out, it doesn't necessarily reflect my life presently. It usually only just reflects it at that time of recording. So, like if you listen to my podcast from the top, you probably have heard about my partner, our relationship and its functions, how we managed to get through certain things, possibly even us getting engaged. I may have mentioned it in an episode, but that's actually changed. And very quickly, I have tremendous respect for his family and his friends. And so I'm not going to disrespect him in any way. But long story short, a lot of you know this. I took the episode down, but there was an episode where we did it together while we were on a break. We took a break in January of 2021 because I noticed a lot of behavior that I just was not willing to settle for anymore. He came back with proof of changed behavior. We shortly got engaged and started to move towards a permanent life. And I think due to certain circumstances, it did need to be rushed. It's hard to explain. Like, my apartment lease was ending, and culturally, I just do not want to live with someone before we're married. It's just part of my culture. It's part of who I am. And so all that being said, a few days before the wedding, less than a week before, I found some information on his person that made me not want to marry him or deal with something for the rest of my life. And I'm not going to get into detail about what it was or what I saw, but I just knew that the person that I was with, there was a whole side to them that I did not see, and it was not something I could look past. And that's all I'll say about that, because I don't want to disrespect him, though I do not believe he deserves it. It's not about him. It's about me. So there's that. I will say this though. I genuinely think that, and this has, the reason I say this is because in a lot of relationships that have panned out the same way, I've ended up talking to those people who've been through the same thing I have, and we all kind of come to the same conclusion. And I feel this way about my ex. I think that he had an emptiness inside of him. And, you know, we say that about people. Like, I hear that about a lot of like serial killers on podcasts. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, there's just a void. And we are all responsible for our own void, so that the people in our lives are these beautiful assets. But there's nobody in my life that fills my void but me. He was not taking responsibility to fill that void for himself. And so in the times that we were together, I was filling that void. I was like that high for him. And when we were apart, I'm not even talking about on our breaks. I'm talking about like the days of the week that we weren't together. There was such a tremendous, deep emptiness, and he needed to fill it with certain things. There was some time between finding out what I found out and actually calling off the wedding, and a lot of stuff happened in that time. And at the end of the day, I didn't go back. I decided to call off the wedding and deal with that damage control rather than deal with the damage control of a inevitable divorce. And if you know me, I've joked about this before. There's no shame in divorce at all, but I've seen a lot of divorce in my life. And so for me, if it's something inevitable like that, like in my, where I'm like, oh man, this is not going to end well, I'm not going to do it, because I would rather murder my partner than divorce them. So like, that's just where I'm at, where I'm like, okay, this has got to go down in flames in the best way possible. I will say this. The reason I didn't go back, the reason I decided not to go through with it was because for once, I decided to believe the evidence that was in front of me. And I have a couple of friends and clients that are kind of going through this right now, where they're seeing proof in front of them, but whether it's their head, their heart, or their gut is negating them, is negating what they are seeing, right? My mom had made this comment about, she's like, you can't blame yourself. Like, he literally had everyone fooled, right? Like, our whole family, he had his family fooled, right? And while I don't blame myself, there were definitely a lot of signs I overlooked or maybe missed on purpose that, like, I think about it now and I'm like, oh my God, like, why did I not, I saw it for what it was, but why didn't I make the connection that this was like enough, And it was because I was trying to do the right thing. And if you're not Middle Eastern in background, growing up in America, I feel like maybe you'll have a hard time understanding that, or some kind of culture where we don't do dating. And so this was a huge deal. It was these little signs that I had missed in the past that made me want to take that break in January of 2021. Then it was on the premise of possibly changed behavior, but that we move forward, but it wasn't real. It was not sustainable. I do believe that, like, in his fights and pursuits to like win me back, that he really wanted it. But you know how it is, like, when someone doesn't believe in themselves or have self-confidence or have self-love, that stuff is so short-lived. Once the high and the adrenaline is gone, they're on to the next thing, and that's totally fine with me. But at the end of the day, I could sit here and tell you a billion jillion things, but it was self-respect that I had that contributed to me not going back. Now, I'm not here to judge anyone's decisions, and if you were one of those people that went back, I have reason to believe that that was the best decision for you. That's it. I'm just going to leave it at that. But for me, the best decision was not going back. And I'm going to talk about a few things that I learned in this last couple of months. And it's actually been a little bit like about half a year or so, give or take. So it's been really great. And let me just tell you, when you get rid of certain things in your life, even good things, because they're not great, right? Like, get rid of the good things to make room for great things. But when you get rid of things in your life that have been holding you back, it is crazy how much you can flourish. Crazy. And one day I will have a podcast on how I manifested my dream life by simple action, inspired action of saying no to him. Anyway, there are a couple of things, mindset shifts that helped me not go back, for lack of a better word. The first is both actions and non-actions, verbal and nonverbal responses, behavior or lack thereof, whatever that is, that's exactly what I was looking for. Allow me to explain. I recently have been telling a friend, because of her predicament, like a predicament that she's in, no response is a response. Indecision is a decision, right? So whether a person decides or doesn't decide, they've decided. Or whether a person responds to you or doesn't respond to you, they responded. And I use this for almost everything, but when it comes to this self-respect that I needed to walk away, like what you see changed in a person or don't, that's the change. Either they adjust or you adjust or we adjust together. But that's the answer you needed. Whether someone's acting on something that you asked them to act on or not, that's the answer you needed. So that was the first thing where I was like, everything is the answer I'm looking for. It's just not specific, and I have to open my eyes a little bit. The second thing that really helped me was realizing what a good communicator I am. And I'm a firm believer that even when it comes to like what you consider the bare minimum, you have to at least be a good communicator, right? Because the bare minimum for me and the bare minimum for you of what we require in relationships are so different. And so I believe that I'm such a good communicator that when I ask for the bare minimum, it should be at least understood. And if that person understands it, then asking for the bare minimum more than once is too close to begging for me. Does that sound like I'm high maintenance? I don't care. Is it called self-respect in my opinion? Absolutely. Asking for the bare minimum more than once is too close to begging for me. Now, if you show me a relationship where you've had to ever beg for something, it might be circumstantial. If you show me where you've had to beg for the bare minimum for your needs to be met, I don't know why you're there, and I don't know why I stayed for so long. The third mindset shift that I had was words without actions is a lack of discipline, but consistent words without actions is manipulation. That's it. I said what I said. The fourth thing that I learned is that when I looked at all of the evidence and realized the excuses and the lies, and I finally started to see through them, right? I started to see the evidence for what it was in front of my face. I realized that I would much rather adjust my life to his absence. I would much rather do the damage control of calling off a wedding in the Middle Eastern community. I would much rather do all of those things than adjust my needs, my wants, my desires, and boundaries to keep him around or to have a copacetic life, because he'd never done that for me. And I'll give you an example of this. After finding out, like I said before, there was a finding out like of all the things that he had been hiding. There was like a small, I think like 36-hour, 72-hour window where I was like, I think I'm going to go through with this wedding because it was the right thing to do. I was just like, I'm just going to take the secret to the grave. After we get married, I'm going to tell my sister, and then at least somebody on this earth knows, right? Like that's kind of how I was doing it. I was kind of accepting defeat. Like, I'm this far now, I got to do the right thing. But I remember sitting across from the table at my ex and I went out to go eat to kind of discuss what the hell was happening. I just remember saying a bunch of things that I didn't want. So I just, at some point it was really quiet, and I looked up at him and I said, here are my rules. We're never going to have kids. And he said, well, we can just, and I was like, no. I'm telling you, we're never going to have children. If we buy a house, it's under my name. If we buy cars, they're under my name. If we start any kind of business, under my name. I was like, I don't want to change my last name. He made a joke that he would change his last. And I was like, no, you don't have the integrity to carry my last name. So I started shifting all of these things. Now, if you don't want children, if you want to have every business, car, and home and endeavor under your name, or if you don't want to have a joint bank account or change your last name to your spouse's last name. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is those are the things I wanted. I've always been very excited to eventually take my husband's last name. I'm a little traditional in that way. Have a joint bank account, have split endeavors, whether it's, equal in some way or they're shared. Have children, have, all of these different things to literally share a life, become one with a person. It's what I've always wanted. And so I was sitting there adjusting my needs, my wants, and my desires to keep things copacetic when he was either unwilling or unable to make small and big shifts in his life to keep our relationship in a long-standing place. I was like, man, it's actually going to be so much easier if I just adjust my life to him being gone than if I change every plan I've ever wanted since I was a child. And I'll close with this in this very short podcast episode. The last thing that really helped me have this mindset shift and the self-respect and be able to leave is, I guess, a piece of advice. Do not attempt to or believe that you are receiving love from someone who doesn't know how to love themselves. Please look at the way they love themselves. I'm not talking about insecurities, because there are so many people on this planet who will love you to death, to pieces, but maybe they're insecure about their body or maybe how they are when they walk into a room. That's not what I'm talking about. When someone lacks in self-love so much, you will see it in their behavior towards themselves and towards everyone. Do not attempt to believe that you are receiving love from someone who doesn't know how to love themselves, the same way you'd never trust if a naked man came up to you on the street and offered you a shirt. You can't give what you don't have. I say all this to say, in my personal opinion, self-respect is the ultimate bad bitch move. And I walked away out of self-respect, and I'll stay away out of self-respect. I will say this, that while I have so many great memories with my ex, and I will always cherish those great memories, I am much more better off. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's, I'm learning to forgive myself for learning that in hindsight. Everything that I had been manifesting in my life in the 2.5 years that my ex and I were together, that for some reason just wasn't coming through to me, I realized that in order to stay in any it doesn't have to be a good person, bad person, whatever. That's not even what it's about. But in order to stay in such a relationship that was structured that way, that wasn't meant for me, and this is how it is for everybody, in order to stay in a relationship that's just not meant for you, you have to lower your frequency and your vibration and lower the things you're willing to attract. So I was trying to attract these really high vibe things with this low frequency. When I say that, I'm saying frequency like I'm an alien or something. But I mean, in simple terms, I kept trying to get him to rise up to my level. And because he would not, I had to lower myself to his level. And I was trying to manifest and bring into my life these things at this high level that I once was working at. And now that he's not a piece or a component of my life, my vibration, my frequency, the level I'm acting at is higher and higher and higher. And all of a sudden, within 5 months, everything that I wanted in those 2.5 years has come my way. It is absolutely insane. And so for that, I have to thank God and the universe and the people around me for pushing me forward on a decision that was really, really hard. I called a friend, the day that I called off the wedding, a lot of my stuff was at his house because we were getting ready to move in together. And I ran to get my stuff. I was like, I will drive through your garage right now if you don't give me my stuff back. So he gave me my stuff back. I called a friend. It was raining really bad that day, monsooning. And I was like, hey, she lives down the street. I was like, hey, I called. I didn't know context. I was like, I called off the wedding. Can you come help me unload this van? And it was just like, yes. And I've just had so much support since straight up in the beginning. And it's been great. And so I'm so excited to be back. I have so many exciting podcasts coming up. These interviews, I'm telling you, I have just started to record them and, record and edit them. They're blowing my mind. And it's so rare that when I listen back and re-record and edit and all that stuff, like that I'm always mind blown. But there's two especially coming up that I think you'll know them when you hear them, but that have just blown my mind. And I'm so excited. So regardless, thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for sticking around. I'm excited to get back into it. And just remember, self-respect is the baddest bitch move. I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for checking out this week's episode. I love having you around my table. You can follow me on Instagram at Table for 9 Coaching. That's FOR and the digit 9. And I'll see you next week.